Got a knot on my head too. Welcome everybody to Catfish Weekly, along with Chad and Josh. I am Lyle, and boys, we got a great guest tonight with some great information about something that if you don't pay attention to, you should. That is structure. And we'll get to Ted in just a minute, but we got some tournament results and a few other things to go over. So, Chad, what do you say we knock that out right quick?
All right, out of the Indiana Catfish Association in Grandview on 8/19, let's go with our top five here. We've got James Halcomb and Charles Breedlove at 45.51 pounds. In fourth place, Josh Vanover and Sean with 70.66. In third place, Corey Peterson and Travis Yost at 71.6 and the Big Fish of 33.6. In second place, we have TJ and Stephen Francher at 83.43. And winning it all in first place, we got Will and Rusty Sylvester at 110.01.
That's some awesome numbers.
Yes,
awesome
it is.
Numbers.
Yeah.
It sure is.
All right.
Josh.
Guys, real quick, just keep Kenneth Powell, our buddy KP, and his family in your prayers. I'm sure most of you know the updates that have been going on. I'm not going to share his business here on Catfish Weekly, but that information is readily available out there. But he and his family could all use your thoughts and prayers at this time, and we'll leave it at that. So
that's exactly right. And we're wishing him and his daughter the very best of everything that can happen for them. And good Lord will provide, and she will make the correct decisions on what needs to happen. And we just wish him the very best. We don't want him to go through anything he doesn't have to. On another note, I got a message before the show started from a gentleman named Matthew Schott. And he was asking me if I had ever used eel for bait. And it was a clear-cut answer for me, and the answer is no. They're too snaky. I don't want no part of anything. That's right. I don't even want giant night crawlers. I don't want nothing to do with anything that looks like snake. I'm not touching them. I ain't having nothing to do with them, and I sure ain't going to eat one. So
you wait until my next visit, then, Lyle.
Yeah,
oh yeah,
I got you. But we did have a question, and he was wanting to know, and you can leave these answers in chat from Matthew, because I imagine he's probably watching the show tonight. Want to know if anybody that watched our show did use eel for bait. And I know the guys out east use that a lot, but I think they're a little more readily available for them. The Mississippi River used to be full of them when I was a kid. We used to catch them all the time. And
you don't catch them anymore.
No, I don't think there's near as many, if any, left, at least in our area, because I haven't caught one in years, and I don't know anybody else that has. But now he lives down around the St. Louis area somewhere, so it's possibly that he has caught one, and maybe he's wanting to know if it would work. I assume if a couple of them guys out east could catch catfish on them, anybody from the Midwest could.
I would say if you catch one swimming in the waters that you're fishing, I would say
it's bait.
That it is going to work as cut bait. I have never used one, and to tell the truth, every year I'd end up with like an old banded water snake in the boat. Until a year or so ago, when I decided that the next one to get in the boat was going to become hillbilly eel. And I have not had a snake get anywhere near my boat since then, because I think the word got out what I was going to do to one.
That could very possibly.
I know we have them in the Kentucky River and the Ohio River up here, but I have never in my life caught one. But we have been using eel a little bit here and there, a couple of us up here on the Ohio, and yeah, they are some slimy little boogers, that is for sure. But they definitely will last forever. But I think probably part of the reason why we're not catching them anymore on the Ohio and on the Mississippi is I think they've all been shipped up to the Potomac. So
that's a great place for them.
Brian B wanted them, so they shipped them.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Jeff Beal has got an eel distribution center a few blocks from him, $5 a pound, open seasonal. Interesting place. I bet it would be.
Not for me. That's kind of like the place when you go to the county fair and the snakes are there, and you got to walk up and you walk across the platform, and they're all in things. Invariably, there'll be somebody looking at them, and you walk up and grab them by the leg and yell, and they'll tear that place up trying to get away from it. Done that to my brother one time. It was quite funny.
Oh,
It's something you never forget. I done something else too, but we'll talk about that after the show.
All right.
You want to go through the people in chat, and then we'll get on to Ted?
Yep, I will go ahead and do that, but I also wanted to step back again too and about the KP situation. Freddie, if you go over to Freddie's Outdoor Adventures and check out the video that he put in, if you haven't seen that, he is doing something to try to help Caitlin and KP out. So please make sure you go over and check that out after the show. It's definitely going to be some great items that he's going to be raffling off. So with that, we've got Pontoon Jody, who is in here first and ready to learn from Ted. We've got 922 Crappie Barbecue member, Uptown Chrissy Brown. We got Cat Life Outdoors, Crappie Day Fish on, Mark Barnum. Let me scroll down just a little bit. We got member Brian B. Catfisher. He called you a booger eater, by the way, Lyle.
Really?
We got Brad Bex.
How can that be?
I don't know. Parker Pursuits. Member Get Hooked on D Fishing. Mr. Maurice Kaysen. We got Fishing with Jeff Beal. Irvin, the paid tourist. Member Ray Smith. Scrolling. I'm scrolling. 922 Crappie Barbecue. Annette's Catfishing. Gotta scroll to find more people. We got member Dale Hayslip. What's going on, pal? The lovely Miss Cindy Stokes, who told me a great story. Should we tell her tell the story that she?
No.
No. Okay.
I think we should.
Bumping Mike Greenwell. Matthew Shot. Let's see. Trying fellas here. We got Dave Garchar. We got the Weekend Angler member for 19 months. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you, D, for dropping the link to that. And we got Polar Bear Chad.
I ain't seen him in a while.
I haven't either. Glad to see you in chat tonight.
I think he was afraid that there could only be one Chad in the show at a time.
That is not the case.
You're always
yeah, we got the short end of the stick.
There's Jello.
Again, see what I put up with, Ted?
Yeah.
Ted, I'm glad to have you here tonight, buddy.
I'm beginning to catch the drift here.
You've only seen a short bit of it.
Yeah,
There's Corey with Real and Virtual Outdoors and Mark Barnum. Glad to see you all in chat tonight, but sit back. There's Jerry Parker. We're going to get Ted on here, and we're going to talk about something that if you're not interested in, or you think you know more about it than you might, you really should pay attention, because all fish relate to structure at some point, especially if they're hiding from the big guys or they're looking for a snack. One of the two, and that's
I got news for you. They're always hiding from me, the big guy.
Yeah,
yeah, me too.
Yeah, I understand.
Thank you, Chrissy Brown, member for 26 months.
That's awesome. So, Ted, welcome to the show tonight. We're so happy that you choose us to pass on the great knowledge that you have. But before we get started, I actually have a couple of questions I'd like to ask you.
Sure.
And then we'll try to get to questions after we do the show. But there's a theory of three that you talk about a lot. Could you tell us a little bit about that before we get started?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. There's two different things that are involved with this structure information. First is just understanding structure. And the theory of three is something that developed basically accidentally. And Keith Sutton kind of highlighted it as a strategy to find fish. And it's just that. It's a strategy, but it's intertwined with understanding structure better, And I had a lot of reasons in the past to try to find fish quick, and this just kind of proved out. I started working on the 33 back around like 2005, and it proved out really well. We set, I don't have an exact number, but about 40 IGFA world records while we were developing the information. And so it's proven, and I use it every time I go out now, and it just proves itself over and over again. It's common sense, but a lot of people will say it's common sense on steroids or it's insightful, and it's a little bit everything, you know. But sometimes some of the information that I have to give hasn't been pointed out before, and so that's just kind of why we're here for it. That's where they're tied up. That's why it comes up with the structure talk a lot.
Okay. Another thing is, how did you develop this theory?
Well, yeah, unlike a lot of bodies of water where I fish, you know, we can use one rod or two rods. That's it. We can't fan cast 12 rods out and, you know, and cover a lot of ground that way. And obviously it costs a lot of money to go out and search for fish. And when I was trying to set a lot of line class records, of course, you're looking for particular fish, and you're looking, you know, to do it quickly. You can't go out and spend a week trying to do every fish, right? So, and I can't fan cast a lot. So when I place a bait, I really need to place it tight. I need to know where it's going and why. And it just kind of developed, studying the fish and studying the water. All of a sudden it turned into a monster, and all of this information started coming in, and I just started putting it together. And it's amazing. It works. It's common sense, but it works.
Common sense is a lost thing in our society these days. So I like the term common sense, because so many people, if they just think about what they do or how they do it, things would be so much easier for them. Could you redefine structure so the people that don't know what we're looking for would have a better idea?
Sure. I'm probably going to have a few arguments occur out of this statement, but you know, there's two definitions of structure that are used right now by some game and park department and whatever. But there we go.
Here, let's
There,
we're getting there. Hold on, guys.
I'm already getting into trouble, aren't I?
It's not you.
There you go.
There we go.
Yeah. You know, and in the 1950s, 56, I believe, there was just a freshwater angler that just came up with a saying. He just said, you know, if it's connected to the bottom, it's structure. Well, and everybody accepted that. You know, and then 10 years later, there's a saltwater angler that came up and said, no, that's not right. If it's a change in the bottom, it's structure. Well, you know, if you look up structure in the dictionary, neither one of those are actually
That's
true.
right.
You know, a structure is made up of elements, and the elements are in a relationship to create something, just like a house. You know, you have the bedroom, the bathroom, the front door, the windows, and that's a structure. If you take the window out of the house, what do you have? A window. Then it's just an element that belongs in a house, you know. So to me, a structure, it's a group of elements that are in a relationship that, because we're fishing, that have the capability to concentrate and hold fish consistently. That's a structure.
Okay. I got one more question before we get into the heart of all this is, why is it important to everyone that fishes?
Okay. Yeah, very simple. We are our foundation, you know, for fishing. Everything we do on the water, we make decisions to do. And it just bottom line, the more information, the better information you have, the better decisions you're going to make. And I'm going to give you a real quick example. I'll try to make it quick anyway, where people forget this. I was up north on Lake Vermilion in northern Minnesota. We were there on vacation. I hadn't been on that body of water. And so I did hire a muskie guide for a couple hours for a 4-hour stint on an afternoon, basically just to show me the water. Okay. And, you know, he had one of the new live scope things. I won't try to mention brand names, and he's really enamored with this thing. He loved it. Well, the first place we went, if you're familiar with Lake Vermilion, it has like 340 islands on it. Some are only as big as a one-car garage, but it has 340 islands on it. Anyway, we had a south wind, and it was blowing between these islands and creating currents through the islands that were pretty close together, obviously. And the first place we stopped was at such a spot, and we sonar'd in on a big muskie, and we did get a follow. We got to watch him follow, and that was all cool and unique and everything else. And then he took off, and he started scanning points, bay mouths, weed lines. And in 4 hours, he never went back to the islands. Now, this is where the guy put way too much trust in the equipment and not enough acceptance of what's going on in front of him. Don't get me wrong, guys. I love my equipment, okay? My wife will tell you that. I have plenty, more than I need, and I do like it, and I do use it. However, think about this. If you walk down to the dock, and you walk up to your boat, and you go, take me to the fish, what's it going to do? Nothing. You turn on your depth finder, say, find me some fish. What's it going to do? Nothing. The whole thing about equipment is it's only as good as you. Like with the new electronics, if you don't point the transducer at fish, it doesn't show you fish. It doesn't find fish. So this information, even with all of that electronics, if you can get onto better structures quicker to have the electronics show you the fish you found, I mean, that just makes sense, doesn't it? Instead of trusting the electronics to find the fish just haphazardly, you can burn a lot of gas and waste a day doing that, in my opinion.
I agree.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's all the questions I got. So why don't we just get started with this? We have a lady named Jody that fishes out of a pontoon boat. You might know her pontoon. She does a lot of fishing by herself. In fact, I believe she was fishing last night, and she was the first one in chat tonight, wanted to make sure that she was here to hear what you got to say because she wants to learn how to find them fish. She looks for flatheads.
There you go. I like flatheads.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
They're always fun. Not very cooperative sometimes, but they're fun. Yeah. All right. Well, are we ready to go?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. Well, the whole thing about the theory of three, just real brief, is to find three elements on the body of water, obviously. Okay. And I would kind of try to explain why three, but an element is just part of that body of water, and an element can change according to the body of water. Okay, I mean, an example, some lakes have docks, some don't. Some have islands like Vermilion, some don't, So the elements involved in a body of water that make up the body of water, they change with the body of water. And with the angler, they change with the species. The neat thing about this information is if you understand the body of water you're fishing at all, even just navionics maps, paper maps, whatever, if you can put some information together, you can locate any species because you're looking for elements that species is relating to on that water. Makes sense, right? I mean, northern pike, I like fishing bulrushes at the shoulder of a bay mouth. If I can find a little point with some bulrushes on it, wind coming over the top, I love it. Now, what I just said, though, there's about 5 elements involved. You've got the wind I just talked about. You've got a little rock point with some bulrushes, and you've got a feeding platform, the bay behind it. To find fish, consistently, you want to put this together. However, on a big structure, you don't want 4, 5, 6 elements put together because you start scattering fish out. I don't know why this is. It's kind of 2's not enough and 4's too many. But if you can put 4 high-powered, and we'll get into what high-powered elements are, but if you can get into 3 high-powered elements into a structure that are high-powered elements, truly, you will consistently hold fish and multiple species. My daughter has a little pond out here that she likes to fish She has a little area that she found, and the way she describes it is, well, there's just more activity over here, you know, and she's right. But depending on what she's doing, she'll go there and she'll catch walleyes, or she'll go there and catch channel cats, or she'll go there and catch northern pike. Okay, so the structure's consistently holding fish. She's switching the presentations for the fish that she wants. It's just kind of that simple. But to do this, you have to understand what you're working with. And I'm going to break down a body of water here, okay? Might be a little boring for some of you, but shouldn't be. There's 3 types of elements. Oh, I'm going to back up real quick. I saw a show a couple weeks ago, and the guy was talking about cover. And quite honestly, a cover is something, it's an action. It supplies cover. Something supplies cover. But all cover is an element. It's not structure. And this person was trying to pass cover off as a structure. Cover can be included in a structure, but by itself, it's an element. So we'll just get it in that. There's my little pet peeve. Anyway, okay, there's 4 types of elements on any body of water. Okay, to start with, you got an inherent element. And an inherent element is the water, the bottom, you know, the terra firma, the bottom, the bank, the water, and the sky. Now, the inherent element, while every body of water obviously has them, besides just making a lake, is something you really don't pay a lot of attention to. Okay. The next is a common element. Every body of water has them, obviously, and it changes body of water to body of water. It can be bulrushes, it can be submerged timber, it can be flooded timber, it can be docks, it can be rocky shoreline, it can be riprap. There's also common elements that people don't pay attention to. I don't know if you guys saw the post that I did the other night on high water and wind. And there's 2 elements that continually change, and a lot of times they're ignored. They're a common element, and this is where I'm going to mess you up a little bit. They're a common element until they turn into a high-powered element, and we'll get into that in just a second. But there are elements like clouds, wind, water, current that are there, but you have to judge their value. And it's real easy. This sounds a little complicated, but it's not. Once you look at it and actually see it for what it is, it's very simple. The next type of element is a cluster element, and people fish this a lot. It can be like a half mile of riprap. It can be a whole bay with flooded timber or standing timber. A whole bay full of bulrushes. It's something real big. It's an element that is very large and covers a lot of space. Okay. Now, obviously, in a cluster element, you're going to hold some fish. But the problem with a good cluster element is that the fish are going to scatter. And unless you combine it with another element at some point, you aren't going to concentrate the fish. Okay. We'll get into that a little bit. And then there's a high-powered element. And this is what you want to look for. A high-powered element, again, can be any of the other elements if it fits 2 molds. It has to be able to do 2 things. Elements gain power 2 ways. They gain power by size and mass. Okay, and I'll give you you know, an example of that. If I take a 2-foot branch, and that would be a wood element, and I lay it in on the bottom of the water, you know, in a bay, right? How many fish are going to concentrate on that wood element? Not many. You might have a couple minnows come visit it, or a shad sit on it once in a while or something, but it's not going to hold a lot of fish. If I take a different wood element, like we'll say I take a 30-foot tree, and it lays down off the bank into the water, it's still a wood element, but now that one has power. It has size, it has mass, okay? The other way that elements gain power is their direct relationship to another element. Now think about this. If everybody looks back to where they've caught some of their favorite fish, or their fishing, or their favorite fish spots, you know, where they always consistently find fish, put this together, you're going to find out that area has exactly what we're talking about, okay? Just something to think about as you go here. A high-powered element with a relationship with another element. Okay, so you've got a big tree. Now you lay that tree on a rocky point or off a riprap bank, or it falls in across a big, a weed bed. What happens? You've got different elements that do different things in that body of water. So to consistently hold fish, now you've offered them, choices. They don't have to leave to go find this or that or whatever. They've got it all sitting here. Now, if that tree, you had your weeds and the tree fell over those weeds, but the end of it is hanging over a drop off the point. Well, now you've got a solid, high-powered structure that offers all kinds of variety and elements and places for the fish to do. They can get cover under the tree, they can hunt, they can ambush out of the weeds, they can get out of the sun by dropping off the drop-off, So if you find those, and all three of those elements meet the criteria for a high-powered element, you've got a structure. I can't say always will hold the species you're looking for, but I would bet 9 times out of 10 there will be something sitting on that structure, regardless of the time of year. Ice fishing, spring, summer, fall, whatever, something's going to be sitting there. It's just the way it is. And if you're picking elements that your species are looking for, the chances of, okay, for a flathead, as an example, me personally, I really want a current break. Okay, I want a vertical ledge, a vertical drop, and I want some wood structure. I don't know if you know, but in research they did up here, they did a bunch of tag and track type things on some flatheads, and all the fish over 10 pounds prefer the wood element. So you flathead chasers, you want to do that, take a look at structures that contain the wood. Oh, well, I won't get into the flatheads all that big. But if you present your bait, okay, there's one thing in fishing that is absolute, and that's it. One thing. If the fish can't find your bait, you not only will not get bit, obviously you can't get bit. And believe it or not, fishing is a numbers game. Okay, and people don't look at that way either, but let me explain. Say on a given day, the fish, they're closed mouth, they don't want to bite, okay? It's a tough bite. And there's things you cannot control, that's fishing, okay? But the only thing you can control is to try to put your baits into high percentage water. Let's say that 1 out of 10 fish will bite that day, will make a strike, okay? They'll pick up 1 out of 10. Well, if you present to only 10 fish that day, you've got an opportunity possibly at 1 bite. If you present to 20 fish, 2 bites. 100 fish, 10 bites. And that's where trying to find these structures like this pays off, because you have 3 elements to present to, okay? And this is where people make a mistake all the time. People get spoiled. I have a friend, and he is a friend. He'd give me the shirt off his back. But boy, he's got a bad habit. He does. He just, deep water, regardless of time of year, regardless of everything, okay? Deep water. One element he looks for. And there's times he does great. There's times where that's where it is. But we had an example. I'll give you an example. We were going to fish a tournament down in Kansas like 10 years ago. And we were out fishing, and we knew the next day was just going to be windier and snot. So we fished into a couple of back bays, and we found where the shoulders of the bay were coming down, and there evidently was an old creek that used to flow in there all the way through the center of that bay, and then it dropped into the main lake, and about 100 yards up from the main bay there was an old stock dam, and this point came right down to the corner of the stock dam. We anchored there and just gave it a shot. About 20 minutes we had 4 fish on. It was like, okay, let's just get out of here, right? Now you would think this pretty cut and dry, right? The next day he wouldn't go back there. They're out in deep water. Don't get caught on stuff like that. Don't I know, you know, if you catch a fish in bulrushes or catch a fish on riprap, you want to go back to it, that's fine, but do not cut yourself off. And the reason is this: if you've got a good structure, we'll just say 3 really strong elements, okay, and you're spoiled on riprap, so you fish the riprap, you don't get a bite, so you leave. You just left 2 elements that your species is looking for at a spot you stopped at because you thought there was going to be fish there. And you're going to leave that place without trying those other 2 elements for 20 minutes. That doesn't make sense. You know, and we've done that. This is a northern pike story, but we're at a resort and little bay out, and of course, all the people standing there out running around fishing northerns and running around. And we were following 2 boats, and we pulled into this little bay. We had lily pads, and then kind of a little mud flat, and then it started bulrushes, and then a rock drop along the shoreline for about 100 yards. And all these boats were pulling right up to the bulrushes, and they were throwing plugs, which is cool, and we're throwing plugs, and nothing. We were watching them. So we stopped at the lily pads. We were throwing some spinner baits, bouncing them off the lily pads. Nothing happened. We threw a couple times at the bulrushes, but it didn't work too hard. But then we went to this drop off right along the bank. You could see where it was. The bulrushes came 4 foot off the shore and dead stopped for 100 yards down the bank. You know, there's a drop there, you know, and it dropped from like 3 feet to 8 foot. We pulled it parallel and we started throwing crankbaits, and it was like 2 casts. We had a 10-pound northern, and those 2 boats had just gone over that. They had just 15 minutes ago passed right over the top of that fish, never put a lure on that element. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense, you know, to not fish all 3 when you're there. You stopped there for a reason. You thought there were going to be fish there, so follow your judgment and finish it out. You know, fish the structure, just present to it. Doesn't mean you have to change your presentations. You can be just using cut bait or live greenies or whatever you want, but put the bait on each of those elements until you find what that species you're looking for is using. Once you find that, things get really easy. You know, now you know, okay, these fish are on the rocks, so now I'm going to be looking for structures that have the rocks, have that drop. See what I mean? Now you don't have to look anymore. Okay? And this is where the strategy comes in. I mean, you got to have a plan to make it easy for yourself. How many of you have, we'll just say, you've been out fishing, tough bite, whatever. You come back to the shore, you load your boat up, you look at your buddy, and you go, man, I wish, what if? What if I did? What if I had? What if I went? You know, what if? You shouldn't have to say what if. You should have known what to do. You could have known what to do. Okay? You'll never have to say that again, believe me, because you'll know what to do. That doesn't mean you're going to catch 100 fish in a day, but you can make a good, solid, common sense decision if where you're fishing isn't producing, where to go, what to do. If you just follow a couple steps. It's simple. It just is. You know, you don't have to say that. And I used to hate that. That just tells me I made a mistake. You know, and how do you get to there? Okay, well, information, like I was saying, good information, you make good decisions. Okay, I spend, like, say I'm going fishing Saturday. I'll be honest. I start Wednesday, and I'm calling a couple of my fishing buddies. I'm calling game fishing parks. I know some people don't like to do that. I love calling game fishing parks. They like me. I like them. They tell me anything I want to know, just because I'm polite to them and they know what I'm doing. You know, and if you can talk to bait shops, fishermen, game fishing parks, whoever, and if you can get the same answer twice, in other words, where are they? Oh, well, they're hitting up on the north end of the lake. Perfect. Okay. Or, yeah, they're hitting in 20 foot of water. Perfect. Okay, you're gathering information, so now you can look at that lake and you can say, okay, well, I know they're on the north end, so I want to find some high-powered structures up on that north end because I know that's where the fish are. You know, that's what I've been told. That's what everybody's saying. And obviously, maybe that's where all the boats are parked, right? So that's probably where you're looking. Okay, but if you hear something from a bait shop, here's in defense of the bait shops. I used to have a bait shop. And a lot of people say, well, the bait shops aren't going to tell you, they're going to tell you wrong. Why would somebody that owns a business that you're the customer of tell you something wrong on purpose? The problem with a bait shop is that most of the people that work on bait shops don't spend a lot of time fishing. They're in the bait shop. Where they're getting their information from is the people coming in. And are the people coming in actually telling them the truth? You know, well, that's questionable. But if you can get, again, two people to say the same thing, probably accurate, or at least worth looking into. Okay? If you can keep a couple baits on hand, sometimes it's not easy to do, but if you can keep 3 baits, 2 baits, so you have a little bit of variety to check with, that's a good idea. Now, how strong or what's the draw on a good structure? I'm going to give you a little bit of a scenario. Fishing with, well, Jason Stansbury, a buddy of mine, a couple years, well, we fish on and off every year, but he caught, a couple years ago, he caught a flathead about 50 pounds, and it was off a little bridge pillar. And the current had dug out underneath this bridge pillar, okay? And he had his bait literally just vertical off the bridge, maybe 2 feet, maybe, off the corner of this bridge pillar, about a 50-pound fish. We went back, we were there the same week, the next year, he caught the same fish on the same structure. And we've caught fish consistently off of that little pillar all the time. And it's nothing, but it has a cutout, it has a current break coming around the edge, it has a deal where the bridge actually like washed away, so there's a hole on the downstream side. You know, it's just there, and fish come there. And that fish came right back to it on the following year. You know, so that's kind of a big deal to think about. It makes sense, you know. The other thing is, don't be afraid to move. You know, if you try 3 and you don't get it, move, but stay on the 3 elements until you find which one they're on. And then, like I said, if you find it, then you go to it. You know, it's just that simple. And it's just common sense. It is. But you really want to gather as much information. It's not rocket science. It's actually pretty simple. And the electronics are great. But you're the one that makes the decision. You pick the baits, you pick the lure, you pick where the bait's going to sit. Like I said, I can only use 1 or 2 rods, right? So when I put a bait down in front of a structure, I want it where more than one element is coming together. If you can hit the connecting points on the elements, okay? Like we'll just say in a river where the current comes over and it does a swing, and the current actually drops or comes over the top of the ledge, okay, that's going to create a lot of really cool flows underneath there, you know? So try to go where the elements are connecting, where the wood is connecting, where the wood's hanging over the ledge, where the riprap. Here's a good one on smaller rivers. Don't ignore the push off the bank. I've caught, well, the one I did last 2 nights ago. Got some really nice fish off a area about the size of a 2-car garage, and our bait was 20 feet from our feet. But we had rising water. The fish were coming away from the main channel. We had a wind blowing up south right through the bridge, just whitecaps. Again, pushing them out of the big channel. And we had a big piece of riprap coming off the bank that was pushing the current in like a little roundabout. So you had a current line and you had a funnel. So all of it came together and the fish were there. And they're always there. I mean, maybe not the good ones like they were the last night, but there's always a couple of them sitting there. And if you get a big structure like that, you know, it just works better. I'm going to give you one more scenario, and then I'll probably do questions since we got a lot of flathead guys here. I'm going to, Lyle, okay if I tell them something about a flathead here a little bit? Okay, all right. And it works for the channels also. During the day, the channels are going to be pushing towards the shore. Okay, not on the shore necessarily, but pushing towards the shore. All right, at night they'll move back to the main channels to flow. all right, to flow up to the feeding areas. Flatheads do kind of the same thing, but don't get stuck when you're fishing flatheads. Flatheads have three structure types. They have the nursery, the staging structure, and the feeding platform. The staging structure is what I always start fishing. It's a big log jam, it's very visible, it's there, has fish, and they're staged up there during the day. But where people with flatheads especially kind of lose it, they might sit on that, they get their, feet in the mud, butt on the bucket, and they catch a couple flatheads. At 9 o'clock to get a bite, 10 o'clock to catch a fish, 11 o'clock. At 1 o'clock it all quits on that log jam. Okay? Now, if like my buddy, he's on the phone calling somebody downriver going, what happened? I thought we were going to knock them dead. We had bites all the way up to 1 o'clock. They just quit. They didn't quit. They moved. Real simple. They moved out of the staging structure to a feeding platform. Feeding platform can be anywhere up to a mile away from there with a flathead. Channel cat, not so much. They move more on migration patterns, but daily not as much as a flathead can. Okay, they're a little tighter. They have their little homey areas daily. Now, seasonally, don't get me wrong. I mean, a channel cat will run 300 miles on you if you get flood water going. A blue cat will do the same thing. Everybody already knows that. Flatheads won't. But when those fish quit biting on that log jam, if you would have moved up to that feeding platform or even that shallow bank for the flatheads that they're moving up to hunt, you could have kept on those fish. Now, where everybody gets caught with this is that same scenario, and the guy go, yeah, but they'll start biting here at sunrise. Well, that's not really when they start biting again. They're just coming back to their staging structure. But if you would have moved with them, you could have stayed on them all night. Probably. There's no absolutes, like I said, but that's probable. They've been tracked doing that. So you guys that fish flatheads, that's something to remember. And you can also access fish that you may not be able to otherwise. Like say you've got private property somewhere and you can't get to that structure. If you have a feeding platform, which by the way should be under 9 feet deep for flatheads. Okay, now I'm talking middle of the night stuff. I'm not talking 2 in the afternoon, unless it's in the spring, then they'll be there too. But they'll move to that feeding platform. They like to hunt for 10 foot of water because of the way they're set up. Undercut jaws, they want to come up and hit the bait from underneath is what they want to do. When you're fishing a Lindy type or whatever you want to call them, Lindy type rib on the bottom, the flathead's actually turning, he's going to turn sideways to hit him. He's going to come in like that, whereas if they're up above, they just come straight up underneath them. Okay? Most flatheads will cruise about 8 inches off the bottom unless there's other conditions that are making them, do something different. But what I want to do at this point is answer some questions. I hope somebody's got some. Bring them on. I want to make your next trip better if I can, okay?
Well, there's the first one right there. Jody wants to know, what about rock structure? She has a place with rock, cutout bank, and a lot of big rocks are in the water in front of it. She's always snagged up there. How do you suggest she fishes it?
Okay. Let's see. Is this is this a current? Is this a river?
It's Watts Bar Lake, so yeah, it'd be on the Tennessee River.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's a good deal. You got a couple options there. You've got, I assume you probably fish with a bait release. I don't know, most people do now. You would want to lock that down and not give it to them because when they turn around, they're just going to take it right underneath the rock. We've got a situation in a place like that, and what we've done now is we've upped our weights to 8 ounces, and we anchor away from it, okay, like sideways off of it, and cast to it. So when the fish hit, we can drag them directly away from the rock. Or you can do just a 3-way where you're elevating the bait and you're going to sacrifice a sinker. You tie a 3-way with, say, a 8-pound mono underneath the drop, and then your bait 18 inches off the bottom kind of thing. But you're going to lose a lot of sinkers. Floats will work, but in a river, not so much, obviously. I would recommend positioning your rods differently. So when you set the hook, you're moving the fish away, and you don't give him a lot of latitude to move on you when he takes it. That'd be my recommendation, without seeing the place.
Jody says it's got a 42-foot ledge out by it. She usually drops her baits in it. It has little current at nighttime because they shut off the flow at the dam.
Oh, okay.
So out there, yeah, it's Tennessee rivers typically, like especially this time of the year, light current if any, unless you're out by the dam and they're running the hydros.
Okay, then I would place it as close as I can to either the base of the ledge, maybe one on top of the ledge, or to where the rock fall stops. If there's a stoppage point where the rock quits coming out, right there. It doesn't sound like you're going to have a good current line at all. And I would still try to position where you can pull the fish away. Sometimes you just have to do that. You know, you just have to position yourself, just like a log jam. You know, I fish directly vertically into logs, and you know, you can't give them an inch. You lock your reels down, and you know, you don't let them move. You just don't, and that may be the situation. If they're in that drop, you know, you should be able to get them out of there, unless there's rocks over the edge of that drop too. Then again, you're going to have to just position where you can stop them from going into it. In my opinion, I mean, that would be the perfect setup. I don't know if you're capable of doing that, if the area would let you, but that's what I would try to do. And if you anchor upstream, that can stop them. Well, you're not dealing with the current. I was going to say in a current, that'll stop. That you can use the current to keep the fish from going sideways on you. You know, but what you're talking about, I don't think that would work. Okay. I hope I helped you. That was a little different, but thank you for the question.
Dave Funk asks, would fishing a flat between two channels be considered the theory of three?
Yes. Yeah, it would depend on the deal, but yeah, if you got two channels, that's going to give you essentially four current lines or two intercurrent lines, and if you can pick on that flat where the two channels kind of funnel a little bit, narrow up just a hair, it doesn't have to be a lot. That's just like cows following a fence line. The flat would definitely be a good one like that, and yes, that would be essentially a theory of three. Again, the power of it will depend on how much current. Current's the main positioner in a river. You know, you really want to pay attention to it. But if there's not enough current, it's not that important. But yeah, a flat would be a good one. You got two channels, yes, especially if the channels come from a different way. Say you got one center of the river and one that's more off to the bank, and you can get it where they funnel together a little bit. Absolutely, fish it. They'll move it. They'll come up on it.
Let's see. Oh, there you go.
Yep. Fishing and Fever asks your opinion on fishing wing dams with shallow structure in front and behind with a ledge at the end, day versus night.
Yeah, no, I think you're on the right track already, just the way you worded that question. A lot of people, in my opinion, make the mistake when they're looking for active fish and they're fishing wing dams. They throw their bait automatically right straight back into a 40-foot hole. You know, and depending on the species and time of year and everything else, yeah, that can be good. But if you're going to fish night and you're fishing channels or flats at any point, you know, between wing dikes, there's also going to be that hump between them where the silt kind of settles down in. Those humps at night, that's just like a feeding platform. Everything will be up on top of those, right in between the weak dikes, where it actually gets kind of quiet and everything settles in. There's going to be some garbage up in there. But back to your question, yeah, the rocks in front of the wing dam, yes. There's usually a channel that swings around to the shore, like the back current, backflow, and it comes around the front of that wing dike. A lot of your fish are going to be right at your feet. If you can find where you can get your bait to the bottom of that channel, right on the front of the wing dike, you'll find fish.
That's 100% correct. Wing dikes are one of my favorite things to fish on big rivers. And let's face it, they really don't have them on small rivers.
Yeah,
So you can.
Can I answer this one?
Sure.
Nubbies, it will take a 5-star resort hotel and all expense paid meals. I'm just kidding.
Oh, not much. I'm always game. I used to spend a lot of time fishing Santee down South Carolina. I like it down there,
Nice.
except for the gators.
Yeah, I would say I like North Carolina area fishing. There's quite a few lakes in North Carolina I like to fish.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's a good area down there.
Here,
There's a lot of
this
fish.
is the most important question of the night from FOA Customs and Gear. Who is the best structure fisherman out of the 3 on panel with you? Ted, not Tim.
Yeah.
Josh, Lyle, or Chad? Even though, he thinks it's not me, I know you're going to go with me.
Wow.
So you don't have to answer.
Okay. Well, I'll give you an answer, but I'll just say, I haven't fished with you guys, so for me to make a statement like that would kind of be irresponsible. I don't know how you guys do it.
My money's on Lyle on that one. So
Your buddy Jason has invited me up to fish with you guys a number of times, and I appreciate it, but it always seems that before, when he started asking me, we was fishing tournaments all the time, and by the time we was done fishing tournaments, you was getting pretty cold up there near neck of the woods, and now we got this 100-degree weather. To be quite honest, as Chad well knows, when it gets around 100 degrees, this old guy don't get out much.
It's pretty tough up here right now. I mean, we can pull a few nice fish out of a body of water, but they're not really moving real hard right now. We need it to cool down a little bit. I think, for us, the next really good bite we get is going to be about the second week of September.
Right.
And that'll run for about a month, and then you'll just be able to pound them. Everything. So right now it's a little tough.
I think that about the middle of September is when the fish is going to. But let's face it, by then, if we're not out of 100-degree weather by then, we're going to be in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's just the way.
Yeah.
So I think that's usually the time when things start cranking up in my neck of the woods. So I'm anxious for September to get here. In fact, we're going to have a cool off period. It's going to drop nearly 20 degrees next week.
Well, I hope so.
Mostly all week. So I'm excited. Then we can get out of the house because, like I say, you can put that top up on our boat, and it's still friggin' hot. It just is.
Yeah.
And
the air's hot. 104 up here today.
104. See, you was hotter than we was.
Yeah,
I only got to 97 or 98 today.
Yeah, and the next 2 days we're going to hit 100 again.
Yeah, that's what we got. And that's just ridiculous. And it's, you can say what you want about global warming, but this stuff goes in spurts. It goes in spells. It's been doing it. The Earth's been warming up since the last ice age. So global warming is a fictitious thing of a democratic mind. It has nothing to do with reality.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, we had 100-degree days last year and the year before.
Absolutely. You get them every year.
Yeah.
That's right.
We always get a week somewhere where it just goes ballistic on you,
Yep.
So
Jody wants to know, can you find flatheads under docks too?
Yes, you can. I'm going to assume you're talking a lake, maybe not. Yeah.
Tennessee River, it's a lake.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Especially public docks later on. And the reason for that is kind of a cheater's way of looking at it. But a lot of times I'll pull up to a public dock where people have been fishing all day because, boy, they dump a lot of chum in the water. I mean, they're dumping dead bait, they're dumping minnows, they're dumping night crawlers. They aren't supposed to, but they are. Mm-hmm. And after dark, you'd be surprised what comes up underneath some of those docks. And they've been doing it every day,
I think that, you can correct me if you don't think this is true, but I think a lot of catfish, not specifically flatheads, but I think a lot of them go under docks in the hot part of the day because they're shady.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Just to get out of that boiling water that's out there. And I think that it's something that not just catfish, but perch, bluegill, especially bluegill, they don't like that hot water. And if they can get in that shade, you go up there and you can do some dock shooting and just clean house.
Okay, yep. I'm going to throw in a thing about the theory of three here and elements since you brought it up.
Okay,
Shade is an element too, Lyle. See, that's
absolutely.
where a lot of people don't think about it. Some days you have it. Some days it has a lot of power. Like today up here, shade
Hmm.
under the dock, shade a couple of trees hanging over the bank, whatever. Yeah, those fish want to get out of that sun, and so therefore that element has the power to put fish in there. You know,
I
yeah,
agree.
absolutely.
I agree 100%. And Lake of the Ozarks is a very busy lake this time of the year. Doesn't seem to matter how hot it gets. Those people that are out there in pleasure boats, but it does to us guys that are sitting there when there's no wind or anything. It's just you're kind of boiling in your seat. But
Yeah.
those docks will always be there. It's got more docks per capita than any other lake. So, but they don't hold under every dock. It's kind of like a river with wing dikes. Fish don't hold on every wing dike.
They
But
got
when
it.
you find the right one, it's gold. And the same way with the docks. When you find one that's holding fish, it'll hold a lot of fish.
Yep, there's a reason they're holding under one and not the other.
That's right.
And it'll always be there. It comes back. There's something there. I don't know if they got a Christmas tree stuck under it or whatever, but there's always a reason for it.
If you have side imaging, and I know that this live scope is probably maybe better at it. I'm not 100% sure of that, but side imaging is one of the greatest tools for finding structure that I've ever seen, because you can side image underneath a dock, and if there's a rock there, or like you said, a cedar tree, or anything like that, something somebody has put underneath there, it'll hold fish. Always.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Maybe not today, but at some point there will always be fish under that dock.
Yeah. Yep. And different species at different times.
That's
Believe it or
exactly
not,
right.
I've caught muskie underneath docks like that, and they're up there under there chasing perch.
They got to eat too.
Especially under like right at dusk. The big predators, walleyes, northern muskie, what a bass, they'll come up under there because all the perch are hanging out there. It's just like a school of shad, only you're dealing with something with stripes.
Yeah. Love them kind of fish, and predator fishing is like hunting coyotes. You got to have your game face on. You got to know what they're looking for and be there when they get there, and not run them off.
Yeah. Yep. You do. Yeah. I love the predators. Well, but I consider flatheads and blues and channel, they're predators.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. It's just a little bit different game than chasing a muskie, but it's the same thing. They're predators. In fact, flathead's an amazing predator.
Oh, probably one of the best of all.
Yeah, they are. Yep.
Because they don't care. I tell you something that's overlooked as far as predator fish, and people will doubt me because they get eaten by flatheads all the time, is a bullhead. A bullhead is a mean ass fish. It really is.
Yeah, they surprise me sometimes. We fish for them for bait, and sometimes we'll catch one that's so little. The only way I figure he did is he had his little front fins going like this. It's the only way he could have got it in his mouth. But yeah, so they are aggressive.
They're very aggressive, and
they're mean.
They fight hard for what they are, and they make some great flatheads. I've said this a lot of times. I think flatheads will take them in their mouth, maybe not necessarily because they're hungry, but they just want to kill them. They hate them so bad.
I can agree with that. Yeah,
I think they just hate them that bad.
I've had some massive stripes on bullheads where they hit it, they crush it, and then they just drop it.
And then the bait's ruined.
Yeah.
They just wanted to. They were sick of it, wanted to kill it.
They just don't want to buy them. They don't want to round them.
Yep, I've had that happen numerous times.
I don't know why it is, and I just figure they hate them that bad. Fishing people wants to know, how about a bridge pylon with structure buildup in front, channel in between, and shallow sandbar behind? Night fishing for flatties. What would your first anchor position with limited time?
Okay, yeah. Well, okay, all the bridges that I'm aware of, I don't know your bridge, but all the bridges, I'm assuming this is going to be in a river, what we're talking about, yeah. All the bridges have a foundation section, okay? I mean, if put your baits down right next to the pylons, you're going to find out you got some concrete block, you got some big boulders, you got all kinds of junk. But just to the downside of the pillar, where the current kind of comes around, you're going to get a couple of things that work for you. You're going to get 2 current breaks. Okay, you're going to get, left side of the pillar, right side of the pillar. And depending on the depth, but about 20 feet, 25 feet from the bridge, on the downside, you're going to find a drop. And if you can hit, I've got a place I put 1 on each current break and right over the ledge into the drop early in the evening, or afternoons even, and early in the evening until, say, maybe 9 or 10 o'clock. And those fish will hold right along that ledge downstream of those bridges. And all bridges have a ledge of some sort. It's just because of the way the current works and everything else. It's a washout kind of a deal. It's going to be about 20, 25 feet just downstream from that pylon. So 1 bait on each current line and out just, and you can test it. Like if you cast out and go down, count it going down, then move up 10 feet, count it going down. You'll find right where that ledge is and put it just on the downside of that ledge. And I'll catch a fish, all of them, blues, channels, flats, everything, early, like 5 o'clock at night to 10 o'clock. After that, they're going to probably move around the pillar and move up the shoreline.
They like shorelines at night.
Yep, they do. At least that's the water I fish. The only problem I have giving talks like this is that, I haven't fished your water. I haven't seen it. So I can only talk about what I've seen and what I'm dealing with. But I hope it helps, gives you some ideas anyway.
I think that flatheads really like the shoreline that has grassy stuff growing up around it because it'll hold bluegill and other bait fish up in it. And they can only stay in there for so long. And then flatheads can go up in there and get them. They go anywhere they want to. But they know that there'll be something to eat in that grassy stuff. And there's a tree or a rock. There's something about wood and flatheads. Because there'll almost always be some kind of bait fish around an old tree stump or a tree top or just a log. And flatheads love wood. They just do.
They do. There's one thing about structure here I'll mention too, since you're talking about, excuse me, I had a frog, big frog. Have frog legs for dinner tonight. Anyway, when you're talking structure also, and you said old, and you're right. I don't know if you guys ever read Catfish Fevers, Stangy and Toad Smith, and they made one comment in there that kind of encapsulated the whole book. When you're looking at log jams and stuff, you want big, old wood.
That's right.
And the reason, especially for the big flat, the bigger fish, because if the wood's been sitting there a while, it's become part of the river.
That's right.
And the currents have had time to cut away underneath and cut in between the banks and cut out the hole behind and just do all kinds of things, made it an apartment complex, basically. And so I would pick an old tree, where the bark's even gone already, if I can, that kind of thing. If they still got the leaves hanging on them, that's probably going to be your channel cat deal, because now you got caterpillars and bugs dropping in the water. But that's not going to bring in your big blues or flatheads.
No. Ted, I tell people all the time, I say, there's a tree. Yeah, but it's green. It just fell in that water. The fish haven't found it. And if they have, they don't want to be around it because nothing is around it. You want the older it is, the better it is.
Yeah.
If it's half rotted, that's just makes it better yet.
Yep, it does. It becomes part of the river.
That's right.
It's its own little ecosystem. That's when it's old like that. You've got the freshwater shrimp in there. You've got leeches in there. You've got bugs. You've got minnows. You've got shiners. You got everything, and washouts and everything else going on.
One of the things that I hate worst of all is when one of the big rivers flood, and it changes all that stuff. Because when those old trees that's been there for 3 or 4 years or 5 or 10 wash away, a new one's going to go in somewhere and lay there. But how long is it going to take for it to get to be the good structure like the one that we lost? that's when I start looking for old barges that have been sunken or laying around for 3 or 4 years because it provides that shade element like a dock does, and structure like the tree did because it's been there for so long, and floods usually don't wash those out.
No, they don't usually move. Once they're sunk like that, they get mudded in. They don't move usually. You know. Yeah. No, that's a good deal.
Yeah.
I like barges. I like the barge. I want to be set up on a river when a barge comes by too.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when that water starts moving, just like 2 nights ago, I was down there, and like I said, we had that wind blowing up from the south right through the bridge really hard. Those waves were just activating fish, and when those barges go through, you guys have seen it. 2 minutes after the barge goes by, you get bites. You know, it just rocks the whole system and starts shaking fish up.
Well, now I have a theory about that, and you can tell me if my theory is correct or not. But I believe when a barge comes through and the waves come flopping over and rocks your boat where you think it's going to throw you out of it,
Yeah.
it's also stirring stuff up on the bottom
Oh,
that
absolutely.
hadn't been stirred up for the last hour or two, and that's what causes the fish to bite.
I'm not going to argue with that at all. That's a very good theory, and probably part, if not all of it, part of it. Yep. I'm not going to argue with you on that one.
Well, that's always been my theory. There was something on the bottom; it was just laying there, and I think that's also why a lot of times you'll see a catfish. If you harvest one and take it home, it'll have some weird stuff in its belly. That may be why it's in there. It floated up and it was by them and they just ate it.
Yep.
So, don't know if it is or not. But Creel wants to know, are all live bullheads good bait year round or more for certain seasons?
But also keep in mind that he lives in an area where it never falls below 75.
Yeah,
That's
he
true.
lives
That's true.
Okay.
he lives in Mississippi.
Well,
Louisiana.
Louisiana.
Okay, Louisiana. I knew that.
Well, okay, that's pretty far down there.
Yeah, it's way down there.
I would say they probably are. I like bullheads. My favorite is a green-eared sunfish, frankly, but I like, my second choice would be a bullhead. And I'll just pluck the dorsal fin off them. Not so much for the flatheads. I don't think they care, but for the palm of my hand, trying to hook them up at night, I usually get stuck a few times. But yeah, I think bullheads can work if the flatheads are feeding. Where your water temperature's up, so the flatheads are feeding. If they're feeding and they're not in their wintering holes, I would say a bullhead will do it.
Yeah,
If you put it in front of him. Yep.
And if you can find them all around the year, because my understanding in cold weather, and I could be wrong about this, but I've always been told the bullhead will get down in the mud when the water gets really cold and just kind of hibernate.
I don't know if they go in the mud or not, but I do know they go up here. They go quiet, like
just like a flathead does.
Yeah, they just go quiet. They're not. They're
I've
there,
always
but you're
told
not
her.
going to catch them.
Yeah, they tell me they just, in our area, they just get down in the mud, just lay there all winter and until spring. So they're going to be hard to catch around here when the water gets cold. But down there where Jeremy's at, it's not going to be like that. In Louisiana, I mean, like I say, he fishes year round in a t-shirt, I think.
Yeah, yep. Well, I would say that it should work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, like I said earlier when I was talking, I like to have 2 baits. To me at night on our river, if I got 8 or 10, bluegills or green ears, and I got 6 or 8 bullheads, I'm pretty well set for the night the way I look at it.
Absolutely.
So.
Well,
Absolutely.
922 Crappie Barbecue says, on a reservoir lake, would you start at inlet or at the dam to locate shovelhead, aka flathead, for anyone outside of Ohio? Lake only has channels and flats.
Okay, by inlet, so in other words, this is maybe man-made, and you got a river coming in the north end, I'm guessing, that kind of a thing. If that's the situation, I'm going to go to where, here's where information comes in. If somebody has told me differently, and I trust that, I would go to whatever area they tell me. But if I'm just going to the lake and I know there's water coming in, I'm going there, period. because in a lake, the current will position fish. It'll also bring food to the fish. It also changes water temps. It also creates channels. But I don't know if I'd fish the mouth. I would probably start at a secondary structure away from the mouth, like say where you get a drop, because you're going to get silt. You're going to have a lot of silt going on there. I would probably go to where that lake starts dropping off and then start looking for some flooded timber near the current or in the current if you could find it. That would be my thing. And if the mouth of the river is deep enough, by that I mean say 7 or 8 feet. After dark, I may go right into the mouth and just anchor up right in the mouth. But okay. that would be like a midnight thing, as far as I'm concerned, anyway.
All right.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. But more great information, man. It's just awesome.
Can I give you one more little note?
You bet.
Then I'll back up. Since we're talking depth here a little bit with that, if you're on a body of water and you don't know, now this is more reservoirs and lakes, and you don't know what depth you're looking for, I always go to the median depth. Like say your depth is 80 foot at the deepest, I'm going to be looking for 35, 40 feet to start. There's always fish on the median, and there's always fish shallow. So if I can find a good structure, say the deepest is 80, and I got 40 foot of water somewhere, I'm going to start there, unless I got a problem with water temps or something. If I don't find fish, personally, I'm going to go shallower, unless I know differently. Because if you look at the makeup, you look at the makeup of a body of water, a lake, where's all the weeds? Where's all the feed? Where are the temperature changes and the rocks that have been pushed in and the trees? Generally, it's working towards the bank. And believe it or not, but there's always some shallow fish that are active. They're up there feeding. And if you're a bass fisherman, you can live and die by that one. There are shallow fish all the time. If I can't find them at the median, and I haven't been told any different, fish a couple good structures, I'll move up from 40 to 20, that kind of thing, and try again on a structure. If I do all of that and I can't find them, then I'll start looking for deep water structure. But normally I've never had to do that, really. I'm not, I'm not a deep water advocate. I know that it works a lot of times, and I know that in certain circumstances it really does. But I also know in the summer on a lot of bodies of water, you hit that thermocline and deep water will kill you. There's nothing there. There's no bait fish down underneath there. There's nothing if you've got a thermocline going on there. So that's just an opinion, something to think about. But
yeah,
I'd go shallow. I'd go shallower before I go deeper. So.
Oh, Docker, you're killing me, man. Josh,
I have one last question for Ted, real quick, before Josh does whatever he's going to do. Ted, this is a very important question.
Okay.
Can you please maybe explain to us why Lyle is such a Richard to us boys? If you just don't know the answer, it's okay. We'll move on.
It's just his nature, and he has fun doing
okay.
it.
All right. That's all I wanted to know. Josh, go ahead, buddy.
No, I was going to comment on the searching on the water. I said, that pretty much eliminates half your water right there at the beginning, and puts you looking, cuts the ground that you have to look for, I guess, to find some fish. So I'm kind of taking that to heart. Just cut that, whatever the max depth is, in half and go from there. So
yeah. Like I say, unless you know different. If you got 20 people telling you they're in 60 foot of water, well, go.
I'm not going to lie. I'm gonna put that one to work for me. So.
Well, good. That's the way I handle it. Yep, and it works. And again, that's for just about anything. That's flats and blues. South Carolina, we used to fish the tournaments down there at Black's Camp. I don't know if you guys are familiar with any of those, whatever, but there was a boat. Oh, this was 20 years ago, but we were in the tournament, and there's people fishing a 19-mile marker, and there's some people fishing 60 foot and whatever. And we were coming back into weigh-in, and there's a boat sitting over on where there's a whole bunch of like little wavy crap on the bottom, and a little bit of a neck down on the shoreline, believe it or not. And they were sitting there in about 16 foot of water, and they came in with literally the boat full of water and fish. I mean, they didn't use their live well. They put 300 gallons of water in the boat and like 30 fish. And every one of those fish was 20 pounds, you know. But again, I'm just saying, but you know, there's 18 foot of water middle of the summer on, you know, on blue cats, middle of the day, you know, and they were just pounding them, literally. And of course we stopped, we stayed away from them because you don't want to be seen approaching another tournament boat, you know, then everybody accused them of cheating and everything else. So we stopped about a quarter mile out and just started watching. God, they were just nailing it. That was fun. I learned a lesson on that one.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. I'm sure you're right. Black Camp, Freddie says, Black Camp, Sandy Cooper. Oh, yeah, Ted knows my area.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
And Lyle, real quick, I know we're running long this evening. I know Mark has gone live, so we are actually, Jerry Parker, I'm in the middle of a show, buddy. I'll call you when we get done.
Tell me who's not watching. Will tell me who's not watching.
So, you know, tell me you're not watching Catfish Weekly without telling me. But anyway, we don't have a bragging board this week. We will have one next week. Christina's out of town this week, and I had the kids today, and I had a 2-year-old that was not wanting to give me any type of cooperation. I don't know the better term there, so. I've cleaned an entire gallon of red Kool-Aid off of hardwood floors today and everything else. So.
Nice.
Well,
yeah.
you just handled it very properly. Yeah, you did.
Kids will be kids.
Yeah, it'll.
Yeah.
Even Chad.
See what I meant? That's why I asked my question earlier.
Yeah. I see that.
So we had some good pictures submitted. They'll be on next week's board. They make an awesome board for next week. So
here, we'll go ahead and go back to the regular layout.
It'll be great, Ted. I know, Mark, we are going a little long, and that's okay. Mark had to know that we would, but he is going to be live tonight. As soon as we're done here, you can switch over to the Catfish and Crappie podcast and catch him out fishing. I believe he has a buddy with him fishing tonight, I think. I could be wrong about that. But, Ted, we can't thank you enough for everything you do for the show and helping people out. And structure is such a thing that people overlook because – and I think that they get confused on what is and what is not structure. But anything that has to do with the bottom of whatever body of water you're fishing really is structure.
Yep.
I always have get a lot of pleasure having you do these talks, Ted. They're awesome, man. They're so much knowledge, and I appreciate it. It reaffirms everything that I know and do already, so it makes me feel like I'm master class like you and well.
You probably.
thanks, Lyle. Really, we needed that.
Did he just cut him? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I do. If you have not already, we do appreciate. This is a great wealth of knowledge here that Ted comes in and gives us each and every time. Please make sure you guys hit the thumbs up for him, and also go over to FOA Customs and Gears channel about the update on the thing that he is doing for KP and Caitlin. Please.
Yeah.
I know I mentioned it earlier, but just a reminder, he's right there in chat. I've also put on there, go see him. So go see him. That's all I got.
That's it.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, man, we appreciate so much. And anytime you have anything that you'd like to share out to the masses, please let me know. We will be more than thrilled to have you come back on here. And even if you don't, I may get a hold of you one of these days and say, hey, Ted, how about coming on and and we'll talk about something else.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. That's
There we
fine
go.
too. That's fine too.
You just never know what, these two come up with ideas in the last couple of years that for years I come up with ideas, and some of them was good, some of them was bad, and they come up with ones that I don't even think about. So that's the younger
Okay.
generation.
That's
And
good.
Notice he
Yeah.
didn't say good. He just said we come up with stuff.
I'm not saying they're bad. It's it's you guys look at things different than I do, and a lot of the shows that we've had, thanks to them guys, have been great shows. But it's always a pleasure to have you on here. We're just
No.
thrilled when you do. So keep us in mind. Anything that we can do to help you, we'll be more than happy to. Catfish and Crappie podcast come on next Wednesday night. Panfish Nation comes on Thursday night. Chad, Freddie, and Brian will have the bait shop. Josh, are you going live this week at any time?
You know what? I think we may go live Wednesday night after Panfish Nation. And what do you think about doing some jig tying?
I have some flies I've been working
Well,
on.
that works too.
Okay.
I think we may. We haven't done a live jig tying in a while, so
No, and I get asked about that quite a bit. So when we'll probably start doing some Saturday night tying again here really soon. I've got a couple of guys that are really interested, and they're very well known about doing this. Eric Massey will come in with us, and damn, I can't think of his name.
Kim Burnett.
Kim Burnett. Yeah, Kim
There you go.
always tells me anytime that he'll be happy to do it. My God, he's awesome at tying jigs and flies and stuff, and so knowledgeable. Both of them are about telling people how and do things and why they do them. But Kim's amazing, and we'll get those guys on one time and help us out. But we'll be back next Monday night on Catfish Weekly. I want to thank everybody for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great week, everybody.